Ever look out at the city at night, all those buildings and lights, and think, wow, I'm really seeing this?
Yeah.
We just assume our senses give us this, like, direct line to reality, right?
Right.
But get this, Matthew Soteriou's In the Mind's Construction,
Okay.
he suggests that might be more of an illusion than we realize.
Interesting.
Ready to have your mind tickled? Because we're about to unpack that and a whole lot more.
Tickled indeed. What we consider like direct experience, it gets complicated fast.
Oh, yeah.
When you start digging into the philosophy of mind.
And Soteriou does not hold back. So for everyone listening, imagine this.
Okay.
Soteriou says there's a difference between the manifest image and the scientific image of experience.
Okay.
What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, think about it. The manifest image is basically our everyday understanding. It feels like we're just directly taking in the world through our senses.
Right.
But the scientific image, as you might guess, gets into like the nitty-gritty neurons firing, electrical signals, all that complex stuff happening under the hood.
Right.
And what Soteriou wants us to grasp is that these two images don't always line up neatly.
So it's not as simple as our senses being like perfectly clear windows to the world.
Right.
There's more going on.
Way more. A great example Soteriou uses is pain.
Okay.
You stub your toe, that pain feels like it's happening in your toe, right?
Oh, tell me about it. I swear my toes have a homing beacon for furniture in the dark.
But here's the thing. If pain is ultimately a signal processed by your brain, how can it feel located somewhere else in your body? This starts to unravel the idea that our perception of where things are happening is always accurate.
Wow. Okay. That's already making me rethink my morning stub toe incident. But if our senses are creating this manifest image that isn't always accurate,
Right.
how much can we actually rely on them?
Yeah.
What about things like illusions?
Right.
They mess with our senses all the time.
Illusions are a prime example of why this is such a fascinating, albeit tricky area.
Right.
They completely challenge that direct perception idea.
Yeah.
If our senses can be tricked so easily,
Right.
then there's always a gap between how things appear to us and how they actually are. Wouldn't you say?
It's like reality itself is playing a prank on us.
Exactly.
No wonder this stuff can make your head spin.
And that's precisely what Soteriou wants us to realize. Our experience isn't passive. Okay.
We're not just cameras recording the world.
Right.
Our minds are actively building our reality.
Okay, before we get totally lost in the matrix here, let's bring this down to something we can all relate to. Time.
Okay.
I know Soteriou dives into some seriously mind-bending thought experiments about how we perceive time.
Oh, absolutely. He calls them temporal puzzles.
Okay.
And they perfectly illustrate how our everyday understanding of time clashes with like the deeper philosophical picture.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with one of these temporal puzzles.
Picture this. You're looking at an object.
Okay.
And suddenly, poof, it vanishes.
Uh-huh.
The question is, did you actually perceive the event of it disappearing or just the moments before and after?
That is a good question. It all happens so fast.
Right.
I'm not sure I could separate those moments. It feels instantaneous, you know? Precisely. And that's where the puzzle lies.
Okay.
We assume we experience time as the seamless flow.
Right.
But this challenges that Soteriou suggests our perception of these time-filled events is more about perceptual acquaintance.
Perceptual acquaintance.
It's like building a relationship with the object over a duration.
Okay.
Not just grasping it at a single moment.
Perceptual acquaintance. So it's less like a continuous video recording and more like our brains are snapping a series of photos and then weaving them together to create a sense of flow.
That's a great way to put it. And this idea of our brains taking snapshots, it becomes even wilder when we apply it to sound.
Okay.
Particularly the experience of hearing silence.
Wait, how can you hear something that isn't there? I'm even more intrigued now. Tell me everything.
Well, it all comes down to context and our expectations.
Go ahead.
Think about your visual field, the area you can see right now.
Okay.
It has boundaries, right?
Right.
But you don't actually see those boundaries as objects themselves.
That's true. I can sense where the edges of my vision are, even though there's nothing there defining them, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And Soteriou proposes a similar temporal field for hearing.
Okay.
We're always aware of a certain window of time where sounds could happen,
Okay.
even when there's no sound actually present.
Okay, so silence isn't just the lack of sound. It's our brains actively recognizing A period of potential sound where nothing is happening.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Our brains are constantly constructing these frameworks, spatial and temporal, and these frameworks directly influence even our most basic sensory experiences. It's like our minds are setting the stage for everything we perceive.
Wow, this is giving me a lot to process. Who knew experiencing the world could be so complicated?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder if our senses are constructing reality in this way.
Right.
What about our thoughts themselves?
Yeah.
Do they operate on the same time-bending principles?
That's a fantastic question. And it's exactly where we're headed next. Get ready, because Soteriou doesn't let up. He's about to challenge the very notion of the stream of consciousness.
You know how we always hear about the stream of consciousness?
Right.
This idea that our thoughts flow continuously like a river?
Yeah.
Well, Soteriou throws us a curveball
Okay.
by suggesting that might not be the whole picture.
Interesting.
I'll admit, the idea that our thoughts are in a constant stream feels
Mhm.
kind of counterintuitive. My mind always feels like it's buzzing with one thought leading into the next.
Right.
How does Soteriou challenge this stream of consciousness's idea?
He brings in an argument from another philosopher,
Okay.
okay, who draws a key distinction between the way we experience sensations
Okay.
and the way we have thoughts.
Okay. This is where things usually get really interesting.
Ah,
Breaking down the difference between how our minds handle sensations versus thoughts.
yeah.
Break it down for me.
Think about it this way. Sensations like that stubbed toe pain we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
they unfold over time, right? They have
Yeah.
a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have a duration.
Okay.
But thoughts,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about beliefs or ideas,
Right.
are more about their content, not how long they last in our minds.
So if I think the sky is blue,
Right.
that thought doesn't have a timeline the way the experience of actually seeing the blue sky does.
You've got it. It doesn't matter if you hold that thought for a split second or an hour.
Right.
The content, the sky is blue, remains the same.
Okay.
Soteriou uses this to suggest that our thoughts might be more like distinct chunks or episodes
Okay.
rather than a single continuous flow.
So maybe instead of a river, our
Yeah.
thoughts are more like thought bubbles popping in and out of existence.
Exactly. And this chunked nature of thought nicely sets up another mind-bending layer Soteriou explores.
So,
The difference between simply having a thought
mhm.
and performing a mental action.
Okay, now we're getting into the really deep end of the pool here.
Yeah.
What exactly is a mental action? Is that like when I'm actively trying to decide what to eat for dinner
Sure.
instead of just having random food-related thoughts drift through my mind?
It's related to that, definitely. Soteriou highlights the work of philosopher Brian O'Shaughnessy,
Yep.
who believed that mental actions are a key part of what makes us conscious beings,
Okay.
not just, say, a sleepwalker going through the motions.
So it's about being in the driver's seat of your mind,
Yes.
not just along for the ride.
Precisely. O'Shaughnessy argues that these mental actions are essential to consciousness itself.
Okay.
A great example he uses is suppositional reasoning.
Okay.
You do this all the time. Like when you think, what if,
Right.
and imagine different possibilities.
All right. Like, what if I actually did win the lottery? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
We all do that.
Exactly. When you're playing out those what-if scenarios in your mind,
Yeah.
you're making a choice to direct your thoughts,
Right.
to consciously explore a new path. That's a mental action. It suggests a level of agency,
Good.
of will, that goes beyond simply experiencing thoughts passively.
So there's a difference between daydreaming and deliberately choosing what to think about.
You've got it. O'Shaughnessy even suggests that dreaming might be a state where this mental will,
Okay.
this ability to direct our mental actions, is temporarily offline.
Which might explain why dreams can be so all over the place.
Exactly.
It's like our minds are making leaps without us consciously steering the ship.
It's a fascinating way to reframe how we think about dreaming, not just about the strange content,
Right.
but as a fundamentally different way of experiencing consciousness where our usual mental control is suspended.
This is blowing my mind. If we're not always fully in control of our own thoughts, even when we're awake, does that mean free will is an illusion?
Ah, the age-old debate. Soteriou doesn't necessarily go that far,
Okay.
but he certainly raises important questions about how much agency we truly have over our mental lives,
Right.
if even our thoughts can pop up unbidden, without conscious intention.
Hmm.
What does that say about our capacity to make truly free and deliberate choices?
It makes you wonder about the hidden depths of our own minds, that's for sure.
And the impact of those hidden depths doesn't stop with our individual minds.
Yeah.
Soteriou goes on to connect these ideas about consciousness to even bigger questions about how we acquire knowledge in general.
Okay. So how does understanding that our experience is constructed, that our thoughts might be more like chunks than a stream, how does that change the way we should think about knowledge?
It reminds us that gaining knowledge isn't just about passively absorbing information from the world around us.
Okay.
It's an active process. We filter, interpret, and ultimately construct our understanding based on the very tools our minds provide.
So we're not just empty vessels waiting to be filled with facts. We're active participants in shaping what we know.
Exactly. And that shaping process is inevitably influenced by our senses.
Right.
Our past experiences, our beliefs, even our cultural backgrounds.
Okay.
This means that all knowledge is, to some extent, subjective and shaped by our unique perspectives.
That's a pretty humbling thought. If we can't entirely escape the filters of our own minds, how can we ever be sure we're getting an accurate picture of reality?
That's the challenge, isn't it? And while Soteriou doesn't offer easy answers, he encourages us to embrace critical thinking. Question your assumptions, be open to new information, and remember that our understanding of the world is constantly evolving.
So a healthy dose of skepticism is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Recognizing the limitations of our own knowledge and being open to different perspectives is key. It's about understanding that our journey to understand the world and ourselves is an ongoing process.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
And we're not quite done yet. There's one more fascinating aspect to Soteriou's work that I think you'll find particularly thought-provoking.
Okay, you've thoroughly piqued my curiosity. What's this final thought-provoking aspect of Soteriou's work?
Oh, he takes this idea of knowledge being an active construction, and he pushes it even further. He suggests that our difficulty in understanding consciousness might actually be pointing us towards a fundamental truth about how we approach knowledge in general.
Now that's interesting. Are you saying our own minds are the biggest obstacle to understanding our own minds?
In a way, yes. Think about it. Even with all our introspection and analysis, the nature of consciousness remains incredibly elusive.
Right.
Soteriou argues this very elusiveness might be a feature, not a bug.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. How could our struggle to grasp consciousness be a clue to understanding knowledge itself?
Because it highlights the limits of our own perspective.
Okay.
We're so used to thinking of knowledge as something out there, something we need to grasp and define. But what if the very act of observing, of trying to pin down consciousness, fundamentally changes the thing we're trying to observe?
So it's like the act of studying consciousness alters its very nature, making it impossible to grasp directly.
Precisely. And that principle, that the observer is always part of the equation, could apply to how we approach knowledge in all its forms.
Okay.
Maybe true understanding requires a more subtle, less absolute approach.
So instead of trying to nail down a single correct interpretation, we should be more open to multiple perspectives, acknowledging that our own viewpoint is just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. Embracing the inherent uncertainty and subjectivity of knowledge. That's what Soteriou seems to be getting at.
Wow, this deep dive has really taken us to some unexpected places. From questioning how we experience our own senses and thoughts, to grappling with the very nature of knowledge itself. What a journey. Any final takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. Don't be afraid to question your assumptions. Embrace the mystery and complexity of your own mind. And remember the journey of understanding consciousness. It's a lifelong adventure, not a destination.
Beautifully said. So, to everyone listening, next time you find yourself lost in thought,
your mind is a universe unto itself, full of wonders and complexities waiting to be explored. And the more we understand about how our minds construct our reality, the more we open ourselves up to a richer, more nuanced understanding of the world around us.
Indeed. Keep asking those big questions and never stop exploring the fascinating landscape of your own mind.
And on that note, this has been quite a deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and engaged.